Hello and welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour, the weekly bridge to the future of the piano tech community. I'm David Anderson.
And I'm Ethan Janney. And we're here to ask great questions, and then we'll shut up and listen to some of the authorities, experts, and most outstanding personalities in our little world of pianos.
So, put on your best set of headphones and let's get started.
Welcome, everyone. Great to have you here.
Welcome. Absolutely. Wow, look. Happy Saturday, except for those of you in Asia. I think it's Happy Sunday, right?
It's a good question.
I think so.
Yeah, welcome everyone. We'll just wait for a couple more people to join, the last minute stragglers here. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, so I'll give a quick introduction for anybody out there watching to, for the first time, know what we're doing here. So this is Piano Tech Radio Hour, and we bring in interesting folks from the piano industry and have a conversation with them for an hour. It's always fun and enjoyable. We're having a convention actually associated with this coming up in March, which I'll speak more about as we proceed. But first I'll say Piano Tech Radio Hour is being brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online educational resource that offers you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at www.pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And yeah, I'll say a little bit more about the convention coming up in March. We have all 9 presenters booked for the convention, a ton of great talent. We're bringing in 3 fascinating European piano technicians. We're bringing in Alex Kirsten from Steingraber and Sohn once again. Plus, we're bringing in Paul McNulty, who creates these beautiful period pianos, pianofortes for pianos.
I can tell you a short story about my experience of Paul McNulty. He brought period reproduction pianos to the National Conference last year. For 20 years, I've been hearing period pianos at every 2 or 3, 4 years at national conferences and in other venues, and I had no time for them. I just thought they sounded like weak little pianos. I didn't like them. I didn't appreciate them. Then I heard Paul McNulty's reproductions, where he built a piano from the ground up, and they were the most beautiful. They sounded like beautiful instruments. I was thrilled. So this guy is the best reproduction period piano maker in the world, bar none. And he lives, I think he lives in Warsaw, which is the nexus of the period piano world. So
yeah,
he's a fascinating guy too.
Amazing artist. And we're also bringing in David Clavins, who's building these pianos that you have to climb a staircase to play. You go up on this platform, and he's created his own way of scaling the piano so that he can create these super long bass strings. They're sort of beautiful pieces of architecture as well as design in pianos. He studied traditional piano design first, and then he got so curious that he had to create his own style of piano. He'll be joining us. And couple more names you might recognize: Nick Gravagna, Rick Baldison, some really great piano technicians will be joining us. So I'll speak more about that in the future, but today we'd like to focus on our guest, Mark Purney. And Mark is also an excellent piano tech in his own right. He is a registered piano technician, operates Mesa Piano Service in Mesa, Arizona with his wife, Dawn. They also run pianogoods.com. In 2015, they launched Supply 88 to provide innovative tools for piano technicians. Market inventions include piano wire tires, which he actually manufactures using a 3D printer that's right behind him. They're a revolution in storage and transport of wire coils for field repair purposes. Mark's been an active volunteer with the PTG for many years. He served on the board of directors 2015 to 2019, Institute team 2010 to 2014, Institute director for the 2014 convention in Atlanta, chaired multiple committees. He's a pianist, guitarist, studied classical piano at the Cleveland Institute of Music as a youth. So very happy to have you here, Mark. And today we don't really have any set agenda. We're just here to kind of pick your brain and have a fun chat with you. Anything you'd like to say off the bat to
I just
give an introduction to yourself?
I'm just honored that you invited me to take part in this, and looking forward to chatting with you guys. It's been, I don't know Ethan very well. I've known David for a long time, and so I think this will be fun. And don't know where it's headed, but probably just if you want to give me some questions and.
Sure.
Where it goes.
I'm very curious. So I'm always curious at how just these individuals go someplace and start up these incredible businesses that they sculpt for themselves. So I'd love to know how you made it to Phoenix area and made it to your nerdness for pianos, and then made it to a successful pod of businesses in the piano industry.
Well, I'm that's that's almost a life
story. We got to start somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I grew up.
How did you get here, and how did you start your piano career? And
so it all started. Yeah, it all started.
All laser, I guess you could say. I'd love to know.
Yeah, so when I was 4 or 5 years old, I started taking piano lessons at the Cleveland Institute of Music, and that sort of set me on a path of just kind of learning how to learn. And I don't know, just say that I sort of developed an addiction to learning new things, and because piano kind of expands your brain. If you've done any research into neuroplasticity and how your brain gets rewired whenever you learn something new, and that opens a bunch of doors. Every time you learn something new, it kind of makes you more receptive to furthering that if you choose to. And so yeah, that was the start of it all. I studied piano for about 10 years. Then I got into the guitar, and at that point I developed an interest in electronics because I had synthesizers, and just kind of was curious, how does all this work? How does MIDI work? And it was fascinating to me. So I decided to pursue electrical engineering. I went to Cleveland State University after high school and got an engineering degree, and then worked for about 20 years as an electrical engineer, where I designed. Sorry, my printer's playing the Star Wars theme here. It just finished. Yeah. Anyway, it's annoying. But
I wondered what that little thing was.
I was hoping this would be done before we started, but I apologize for the background noise.
It's kind of perfect. I like this window into your world of small scale manufacturing.
It's like
additive
gyro gear loose in the desert.
It's incredibly nerdy, very nerdy. But yeah,
it is. But that's you're with a room full of nerds right now. So have at it, dude.
Yes, we are a bunch of nerds. There you go. So what I specialized in was I designed electronics and wrote software and firmware for about 20 years. And my specialty was actually paper currency, recognizing currency. So I wrote, designed the products and wrote the software to, like, if you put in an English £5 note, it would know that was a 5 and not a 10, and it would know which direction it was inserted. So I wrote software for probably over 60 countries around the world, slot machines, vending machines, all sorts of applications. And so that was what I did for quite a while. And then But I always wanted to get out of it. I didn't like working for other companies, and I kind of wanted to do my own thing. And then when I got into piano tuning, that sort of opened the door, creating a side business that I could then have as something to get out of engineering and do something on my own. So we started Mesa Piano back in 2007, I think. And from there, I've pretty much, I exited the engineering field as quickly as possible, but now I'm back into it doing all the Supply 88 products that we're doing. So kind of bringing it all together. And that's, and we moved out to Arizona in 2004 because at that time I was still working with the engineering job, and the company just relocated, and that's how I got out here. So hope that answered the question.
And this is going to be totally off topic, and we're not going to talk about it very much, but does your background, which I was unaware of, doing currency detection and so forth, and with programming and technology, does that make you at all interested in Bitcoin?
Yes, I am invested in it.
You are? Oh, are you okay? That's all I wanted to ask, because we're not here to talk about Bitcoin, but yeah, I thought that would predispose you. That's it.
We are not here. So, what I've known, Mr. Purney, over the last several years is that you've tuned for Ravenscroft, specifically for Michael Spreeman at some venues. Is that true, or am I tripping?
Yeah, I mean, I'm loosely affiliated with Ravenscroft. I've worked on their website, did some updates for the website at one point, and right now I'm not doing any concert work because of obvious reasons, but I have been for a couple years prior to the shutdown of everything. I was tuning the 275 at the Tempe Center for the Arts at Michael's request. So that's been a really interesting job, getting to meet some of the top jazz players in the country, a lot of Grammy artists, and a lot of pressure, but and that's not a job I took for the money. It was a job I took to, Michael's been such a help to me, and I wanted to, honor that. And it was an honor to have even been asked. So that's been challenging, but fun.
Oh, yeah, all of that. The fact that you're close friends and trusted colleagues with who I think is probably the greatest piano maker in the world. Certainly one of the greatest piano technicians I've ever seen working.
He's phenomenal. I went into the shop to do a regulation at his request, and I thought I was a particular. It was something to have somebody like him looking over my shoulder, and he'd be like, those hammers aren't perfectly in line. And I'm looking at it, I don't see what you're seeing, and he would spot little things that were. I'm like, wow, this is highest level. I mean, stuff that beyond what I would even ever try to do.
The first time he came into my little showroom in LA, and I was all excited about a couple of these pianos that we just done, and just try to do our best on them. And he sat down and he played them and said, "Oh, beautiful sound." Then we went back in the house and he started, dinging me. Well, this was not quite right. And this was not quite right. And this was not quite right. And I was like, well, you said it was beautiful. It was beautiful. With it's mechanically just not precise enough. Wow.
Yeah, he's something else. But that's what being the best is, and he is. I mean, there's a lot of people like him in our industry, but he's definitely at the very top. And I've learned from that guy.
So what does your practice look like? What does your clientele look like?
I'm just a piano tuner. We do some concert work, although that's not really what my focus is, and do a lot of churches and a couple of schools here and there. Recording studios, conservatories, and a lot of in-home clients. So,
do you ever find it like difficult managing multiple things? I mean, I'm sure it is difficult. That's a silly question, but do you ever sort of second guess it? Do you ever say, you know what, maybe I want to stop having a supply business, or maybe I want to stop tuning, or maybe I want to narrow what I do down to this and this and this? How do you manage the multiple things you're working on?
Well, I think that the path that I kind of see myself going down would be to eventually cut back on the tuning and focus just on high-end clients at some point as Supply 88 grows. Last year was the first year it exceeded our tuning and repair business. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
So I see that getting bigger and our piano service getting smaller, and that just makes sense because it's physically demanding on the shoulders and the hands and everything else. So as I get older, I'm not going to want to
on everything. Being a professional artisan home service or venue service person is exhausting for relationships, for the work, for the travel, for the schlepping. It's it's a lot of work. And so
you have to take care of yourself too.
My dream is to tune the pianos that I'm consigning to sell, and like a golden circle of clients, several dozen clients that have beautiful pianos, and I have beautiful relationship with it. That would be, and have other people tuning pianos as David Anderson pianos, which I have. I'm fascinated to hear about your dreams and why you started Supply 88.
Yeah, well, Supply 88 really started because early on as a tuner or technician, I guess, would prefer to call myself, I became very frustrated with one aspect of the job, which was every time a string would break, I would just go into, like, I just wanted to crawl into a fetal position because I hate doing string repairs. I always have, probably always will. And it was just a frustrating experience all around. But the most frustrating part of it for me was all the various methods I've tried over the years to store the different gauges of wire. Everything I tried was a nightmare, didn't work. It was just, incredibly frustrating. So for years, I tried to think of a way of solving that problem and coming up with a better way to store the wire. And eventually I did. And that's kind of where Supply 88 started as, was wow. All the piano wire tires, which, hundreds of technicians around the world now use them. And that's kind of what we're known for mainly, and probably probably going to be the biggest contribution I will have made to the industry as far as innovating, doing something different.
Got a question in the chat, which applies quite well. Yeah, you don't know. I guess there could be more as well. Let me hit this.
You could have more brilliant creations, Mark.
We welcome you to have more brilliant creations.
I have a few things I'm going to be doing.
Excellent. So yeah, speaking of brilliant creations, Jim Kelly asks, there are lots of good. Oh wait, no, that's a follow-up question. Let me go to his first question. How does one get an idea developed to do a product? I had some ideas for piano tools, but it is hard to get a company to make prototypes or do proof of concept. Anything to say on that?
Yeah, really. I think the ideal way to approach that these days is to do it yourself. The tools that we have at our disposal now that are affordable by people like you and me can allow you to do a lot on a shoestring budget. And when I when I first started, even as a piano technician, the ability to prototype plastic parts involved money. You had to pay some company to do a stereolithography prototype, which, if you didn't get it right, you were out hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands, and you'd have to do it over, redesign, and hopefully after 2 or 3 iterations, you might have a final part. So now you can buy a used 3D printer for $150 and make your own prototypes. And then for anything involving metal, you can get free CAD tools software and learn how to do the drawings, and find a local machine shop if you need metal parts made. And that's probably the way to go. Most of the supply companies are not really doing that kind of work. They're just doing that very thing. They're just going to outside sources. But a lot of things you can do yourself with wood and metal and plastic, and it just, you have to apply yourself to learn how to do it.
The other thing too, people might not be aware of, you got a 3D printer sitting there in the background. I mean, it's not expensive, but it's also not cheap. I know my local library, I found out, has a 3D printer, and there's all these, maybe not as accessible during quarantine, but coming up here where we can visit places where shared resources are located. There's kind of hacker labs and maker labs and things like that sprouting out. Lots of places where you can just hop in and use a 3D printer briefly, as opposed to having to invest in one up front. So it could be another resource, right?
That is a great point. And that's before I ever bought a 3D printer. That's exactly what I did. The Mesa Public Library had a 3D printer that, if you took their little class and signed up on the timesheet to use it, you could do it for free. And so the very first printed wire tire prototype was done on a library printer. That's before I ever bought my own printer. And this one here is the first one I ever bought. It was $1,200. And most of the printers I have are $300 printers. I've got 6 of them right now, six printers that we keep running most of the time, that we can babysit them. So it's gotten a lot more affordable. And, if you look on, just a practical point, if you're looking for a cheap way to get into it, a really good printer to start off with, if you can find a used one, is the QIDI, QIDI. Any of their printers basically, but if you can find a used one, a lot of people buy printers for their kids, and then they find out that, this is something we're not interested in, and they just sit there, and then people sell them for a fraction of what they paid for them, and they're basically brand new. So that's a great way to get started, just to find a used one.
Wow.
Very cool.
The bottom line is it's an order of magnitude easier to visualize, design, and prototype any kind of tool now than it was 5 years ago, correct?
It's so much easier. There's so many things available to us that weren't before. I mean, you can even most people would have a local water jet or laser jet company that can do, they can cut things out of plastic, metal, plexiglass, anything you want. So all you got to do is supply them with a DXF file. And perfect example, this is for our soundboard duster tools, and this is welded steel. So this is just wire that I buy from McMaster-Carr or whatever, and this piece here is cut with it's a water jet cut out of sheet steel, and then I weld the wire to to this piece. But when I first started off, I would take a big piece of steel bar and cut these out and round them out and grind them, but I realized that, we're making so many of these now that I have to get these pieces made, so I don't have to do all that machining and grinding. But it's relatively inexpensive. So just an example of how how a lot of these things are accessible and not very expensive. And this is
and how many Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry. What were you saying? This is like what?
You were just saying that's what it looks like finished. He was showing it with the felt on it.
Ah, got it. Wow. How many tools do you have?
Oh gosh. I mean, ones that we've designed.
Talking about for sale, or probably not in
for sale.
Entire tool catalog. Yeah, for sale.
Oh,
what's your inventory like?
If you want, I could give you a brief show and tell and just kind of show you, because I have a pile of them here. I didn't know if that was.
Yeah, because I know that you sell certain things, but I've just never done a quick look at your whole deal.
Okay, well, as we talked about the wire tires,
we're just generally interested, so you don't have to worry about the self-promotion aspect. But if you want to kind of make it like an infomercial just to kind of have fun, you can.
Well, I'll just kind of briefly go through a few of the things that we have.
It'd be fun.
If anybody who's from the Los Angeles chapter, I apologize because you've seen this already. They asked us to do a presentation a few months ago. So this, as we talked about the wire tires, this is what they look like. I think we have a loaded one up there. So they're marked with the gauges, and you can put about 3 ounces, 4 ounces, maybe a wire, and they just store your and so when you're doing a splice or a repair, you can retrieve your wire without it springing out and ending up all over the place, and it stays put, and you can take out exactly how much you want. Makes it real easy.
And how many different tires are there on the stack?
There's 19 on the stack, and there's 21 possible gauges. So, but you don't really need that many, I don't think. So that's kind of the thing that got us all started.
Just a follow up on that. Just curious.
Ethan,
do you want to?
Is there?
Yeah.
I think there's a bunch of like praise for the tire wire on the chat. If you can read some of that.
Oh, nice. Let's see what we got here. Wire tire demo. Joshua Martell shared that in the chat here on YouTube. Gave a link to your website. Piano wire tire set is really magic. Love it.
Hey.
Yeah, that's cool. There's
Magic Mark
the Gable,
Purney, ladies and gentlemen.
The Gableizer. What's that?
The Gableizer. Yeah, that's a pun. Roger Gable invented this tool. Actually, this tool for tightening up the wire bends around the bridge pins. So this has been one of our most popular items.
Yeah.
Every time Jim Busby does a class, we get inundated. But so this hole flips over the bridge pin, and you can use the pin itself as a guide to rotate the tool, and then the protruding part there then tightens that wire bend around the pin without stressing the pin itself, because if you just take a tool and go in from the side, you're putting a lot of pressure on the pin as well as the wire. And this gives you a real easy way to control and apply that pressure without hurting the pin and elongating the hole that it's driven into. And then we just make the handles. This is a flexible polyurethane just to make it a little easier to hold on to. But yeah, that's it. Roger's invention there is just incredible. It works so well, and we've had nothing but positive feedback on that.
Cool.
And how long have you been selling those?
Probably about 3 years, I think. Yeah.
And we had, I don't know if it was that, it was a tool, it was that tool or one like it. I think, was it, who was it that actually brought that out in one of our radio hours? Was it Arlen Harris?
Cool. Arlen Harris has one, and he worships it as a god of tone.
Did Wayne Ferguson bring it out as well? Like just to kind of, or
I think Wayne did too.
I think he did too. Yeah.
Yeah, it can really clean.
Do you know Wayne?
I do.
Mark?
No, I don't think I do. I recognize the name.
He was he's an executive in the Canadian Piano Technicians Association for a long time. He's been kind of the guy in Toronto, does all the venues and the symphony and everything. And he's just a great guy. Heart of gold, a lot of charity work, long time Yamaha badass, beautiful guy.
Yeah, but I love the name Gableizer. That's funny. Whoever came up with that. So I like that.
It is.
Just one of the other comments here, following up with the others. Carl said, "Just want to say that I use the wire tires and the cleaning tools, and they are wonderful tools." I was curious with the wire tire itself. Is it like a logical process that to create that? Does it come to you in a dream? Like, how was there an evolution of you trying prototypes? How was the evolution of creating that?
Well, okay, so I had suffered a long time with those metal third-pound spools that have the wing nut on it. So you have
those are silly.
Something grabbing the wing nut, and then you have to have something grabbing the nut on the other side, and then you have to have your third hand holding the spool and the wire so it doesn't spring out. And the whole concept of winding wire that wants to go like that, trying to keep it on a spool where the wire's on the outside and the spool's on the inside is kind of backwards, right? So after giving it a lot of thought, I was like, well,
insane.
What if you turned it inside out and had a spool where the wire was on the inside of the spool, and then it couldn't do that? And then from there, I got this thought that, oh, well, okay, even with this kind of shape, the cylinder shape, you still have the issue of once that wire starts to come out of the, around the rim, if it weren't for these notches that I put in here, I could probably shoot this entire coil of wire across the room. It would just keep going out because it wants to uncoil. Right. Find a way to do that unless you find a way to stop it. So that's where that shape came from. And when I first developed it, I did apply for had a patent pending, but I didn't pursue the patent because it's too expensive. If you're not in real high volume, big money stuff, getting a patent's kind of pointless. So, but yeah, it was just many years of thinking about it and eventually coming up with something that worked. So it wasn't like an overnight
awesome
light bulb. It was many hours of just pondering what, trying to imagine what would work and then eventually doing it.
I had a question in here from Fred. He said, suppliers don't have many kinds of jacks. Can you print jacks if people request them from you? Or is that not something that works well with 3D printing?
Are you talking about like jacks in the action?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So far I have stayed away from trying to make action parts, mainly just because of the amount of time I've spent with Bruce Clark and seeing what he's gone through. But the big problem with trying to make action parts is not that it's hard to do. It's hard to do it. The pinning, the pin and the bushing, that's where things get complicated because everything has to be so precise. And like every manufacturer who makes action parts, that's probably the biggest quality challenge is getting those holes drilled properly and getting the bushings in there and getting everything lined up so the parts actually work correctly. So it's kind of I'm not saying I'll never do it, but so far it hasn't floated to the top of the list of things that I think would allow us to meet the needs of technicians in the most purposeful way. And I have quite a few things still, on that list that I want to do when I can get to them. But right now, that's just not on the list.
Thanks. This is an interesting question. Let's see. How well will the wire keep in a car? Is that a problem? That like leaving wire in a car with like heat or elements? Have you seen that at all?
Well, I mean, the issue with steel wire is moisture, and keeping it from corroding is an issue for some climates. Here in Arizona, it's not an issue at all. I can keep my wire in the car all day long. Doesn't matter, but that's, so maybe a desiccant pack, try to keep the humidity away from your wire. But that's really the only thing I can think of as being an issue.
I'm scanning through all the comments. I'll tell you, Mark, so this is one of our most interactive sessions. It's kind of hard for me to get
no question,
search through all the comments that people have.
Are just bombarding. It's awesome.
Cy Schuster said the iPhone 12 has a LiDAR scanner, so you can use apps to scan old parts to make 3D images to print. That's an interesting tip. And then what else do we have? Can you enhance, so David Skolnick asks, can you enhance the strength of 3D output by the material used or only by design?
Both. It's very important that the design be such that it's going to not break. I mean, there's weak points when you have any kind of corners, you want to round the corners. So something's a lot less likely to break when you have, when you do that. Like, I don't know if you can see on this, these are not hard corners. Everything is rounded. So you get that little bit of fillet there, and that gives the part a lot more strength. Whereas if you just have a complete right angle, that's a weak point. So, but as far as the materials go, most of the stuff that we do, like this is an upright lid prop, and this material is PLA, and it's a stronger version of PLA that's a little more heat resistant, and it's plenty strong for the application. So, but anything requiring a lot of strength, you might want to consider nylon or something that's carbon fiber reinforced. And on that topic, just an example of something that I just started working on last week. So I've heard a lot of talk about the Yongcheng brackets being difficult to get, and it's been an issue for a long time. And I've had a lot of people ask me if we would consider making a bracket. So I, kind of put that off for a long time, but recently just gave in, and I actually have a client right now that needs a set and I can't get them. So I'm like, okay, the universe is telling me it's time to develop an aftermarket bracket for the Yongcheng grants. And so I started working on that. So this is just a demo. It's an early concept print. This is not the actual part, and it probably won't look like this, but so this is kind of a mock-up print of one of the brackets. So this took maybe one afternoon to do the CAD work to lay this out from the measurements. And so you can see there's, a lot of rounded corners. There's nothing sharp except for here. That's the only one where the rail sits. And so we're working on that right now. And this is a hollow 25% infill print using PLA. And even with this weaker material, with the, not even being solid, it's still very strong. This would probably be plenty strong for that purpose. And it would be just fine, but we're planning on making it out of.
And what's that made out of?
Well, this is just a demo piece.
What's that? This
is PLA. Don't ask me to tell you the chemical name because I couldn't remember, but yeah. This is the most common 3D printed material because it's easy to work with and it doesn't shrink. ABS plastic is really hard to work with because it likes to warp and shrink, and you have to experiment to get it sized correctly because it shrinks like 2% or whatever, after it cools down. This stuff is very dimensionally stable, and it's
but
great.
It's still durable.
Well, yeah, this is
still durable and straight.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is this is a weaker plastic, relatively speaking. It's not as durable. If you really tried to break this, you probably could, but even so, this is strong enough to where you could use it in a piano action. But the material we're planning to use is much stronger, and if you applied enough force to actually break it,
even stronger. Yeah.
If you somehow could manage to break it, that same amount of force would probably bend this. So it's I know, I already know, and one of the reasons I was hesitant to get into it is because, we're going to be constantly asked, plastic, that's not good enough. It needs to be made out of at least aluminum. And my response to that is, well, yeah, you think that because all the action brackets in the past have been made out of metal, but do they really need to be? I don't think so. I don't think everything has to be made out of metal just because that's the way it's always been done. And as long as it's dimensionally stable and isn't going to break down or biodegrade or warp or twist over time, and it's not going to fall apart, you're good to go. And so the material we're planning to use it'll outlive any piano we put it in.
That's great. Hey, Ethan, I'm on my phone, so I can't get to the chat. There's just questions piling in. So
yeah, I'll read off some of the things that are in here. Let's see here. Phil Bondi said no issue with humidity with the wire here in FI, which I think FL, Florida.
Florida.
I thought Phil was in New York, but maybe he moved to Florida.
Larry Lobel. He's been in Florida for 15 years.
Oh, okay. Larry Lobel asked, what ideas for future tools are in process of development? Did we already cover that a little bit, or is there anything else?
Yeah. So let me be off camera for just a sec.
Sure, no problem.
Uh-oh.
I'll take the opportunity to let everybody know by the end of this session, we'll have a link where you can actually sign up for the convention in March. The page is ready and the links are ready. So we'll be putting that in the chat later. So if you're eager to get the early bird pricing, those links will be in the chat by the end of the session.
So, Mr.
There he is.
In answering that last question, so recently we came up with something because I think Wim Belize is the one that finally convinced me to do it. And we'd been asked many times to come up with some way of storing the 1 pound wire coils that some people use. And so we came up with this. It's this lid twists off like that. You can put your 1 pound coil in there. Then it just locks into place like that, and you can put a zip tie in there to make sure it can't, when the wire's in there, so that it can't be taken, the lid won't come off accidentally. And then the wire is dispensed through the lid. Comes through here, and there's some ridges that kind of slow it down so it doesn't, spring out and run away on you. And then you can store the end of the wire. There's these little holes there. So that's something that we've been selling for a while, and maybe about a year now. But personally, I hate 1 pound coils and would never work with them for any kind of shop work. I like the 5 pound coils, but the problem is there's really anybody who uses 5 pound wire coils has most likely come up with their own system of doing it. I've seen all sorts of contraptions and reels and boxes and that sort of thing. But one of the things I'm hoping to come out with soon is a larger scale of, on this concept where you can do the same thing with 5 pound coils and make it easier to store and load and unload and do that sort of thing. Because we've had a lot of people ask.
Frozen for you?
No, he's not frozen for me. I think that's just you, David.
All right.
Here's another question from the chat from Cy Schuster. He said, show the Vito Pro tool bags too. Do you have those on hand? Or?
No, but if Dawn is watching from her office, I would imagine one's going to magically appear in about a minute or so.
Okay,
I don't have one out here.
We'll wait on that. Sounds good. I'll keep an eye
out. Yeah, we eventually started. I always wanted to do the Vito tool bags ever since I saw the one that Cy brought his to the convention. And I was so impressed with it when I was working with Cy on the Institute. And I was like, yeah, I love this tool bag. I would love to be able to sell them because I've never seen anything like it. So Yeah, it was just a hard thing to get into because you have to buy a lot of product and it's very expensive. So it took us a while before we were ready to do that. But now I think we have six different models. And
wow.
No, just bring it. Sorry, Don.
In the meantime, David Boyce says the long needle dispenser bottles from Supply 88 are the best thing ever for getting Protex CLP into upright action centers without taking the action out. Bought one of those. It's great. Must be used with care and precision. Although that last comment might have been about a different tool.
Yeah, I just happen to have one here.
There you go.
CLP. And we have these little storage tubes. You can put your bottle and your needle. On that, I'm sure some of you are familiar with. Some of you have probably heard of Fomblin, I would imagine. And Dale Irwin's kind of the one that started that whole thing. Him and somebody else, I don't know who it was, but
Ken Eshite.
Oh, okay.
Ken Eshite.
Yeah, and Dale mixed up a batch and kind of sold it to a few people in California mainly. And Dale and Trix decided they didn't really want to handle chemicals and mix things up and bottle them and get into that whole thing. So he just contacted me and said, "Hey, do you want to consider selling this Fomblin stuff?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll give it a try." But it's been really good. All positive feedback so far. Had a lot of people tell us that, wow, this stuff really works. And we can't make any claims because, we don't have the means to do a lot of testing. And it's one of those things where it's going to be years before anyone can say, oh yeah, this is how long it holds up. And but what I will, just one kind of cool thing here is over a year ago, Dale gave me some verdigris hammers off of a Steinway, and he said, "Here, you can play around with these." So I took two that were equally frozen, or I took a bunch of them actually, but I saved two of them that I tested with. And this one I doused with CLP, and that's as far as I was able to get it to free up.
Quite slow.
Yeah, the swing test is kind of not good.
I would call that a negative swing test. Yes.
Yeah. And I did a bunch of hammers. So, and then I did a number of hammers with the Fomblin, and this is what I got.
Wow. It's the same, and it was the same type of issue.
Yeah. This was, and like I said, I only saved two of them as an example, just to sort of get a sense of, well, how long is that going to hold up? How long is this hammer going to still swing? And it's been over a year.
Yeah, and the Fomblin wasn't endless swings. It stopped at 7, which is amazing. From locked to controlled.
Yeah, and I'm not making any claims, nor will I ever make any claims about it. It's we call it experimental. Use it at your own risk. But everybody who's used it that we know of that's gotten back to us has been really happy with it. And it's a number of people have told us, yeah, I had a piano that the only way we were going to get this thing to work is by repinning everything or replacing all the parts. And they were able to get it to where the piano was playable, which, for sometimes that's all the client can afford. And it makes a difference between, them having to, spend thousands of dollars for something they really don't want to spend money on, or being able to relatively inexpensively have a piano that they can use again. So, I'm very happy with it. I use it all the time, and I've, it's just good stuff. So,
Ethan,
yep.
Read some comments. Read the chat,
sure.
Please.
I'll go back to Donna Bird. I think she's asking, what does the wire come with? I mean, I think she's asking, what does the wire tire come with? Somebody said a packet of desiccant. I don't know if that's the case, but
yeah. It comes with this storage bag. We throw in a desiccant pack, but if you're in a humid area, you might want to come up with some additional desiccant to throw in there. And if you're concerned about corrosion, because I've seen old piano wire from old toolkits that is all rusty. So, over time you can get corrosion. So it's a good idea to use desiccant, unless you live where I do. And then it comes with a storage tube, which it stands up, and so these all stack on here like onion rings, and the lid comes off. You can put parts and tools in there. So you can put an entire stringing kit, all your stringing gadgets right inside of here, and have a little compact bag that you can carry it all around in.
By the way, we got the PLA stands for polylactic acid, apparently.
Yeah, and there's different grades of it. Some of it's stronger than others.
PLA.
I didn't catch that one.
PLA. Yeah, for some reason, David's his signal's a little weak today. But I think this was just a tip. In terms, somebody said, we'll just say what Jim Kelly said. He said, I keep my wire and the envelopes in a big plastic toolbox. I have those spools at shaft cells that have envelopes with some rust proofing stuff in it. Put some sorbent silicant or a rust blocker product will help. We're talking about high humidity climate and the coast summer temps of the car can exceed 100 degrees. Enough to make a grilled cheese on the dash. Okay. Sai Schuster said they keep your tools vertically so they can stay in the same place all the time. Here's a question from Danny Hankinson. Would there be someone on board today who might know where to find square grand hammer replacements? It's sort of off topic. Yeah. If you do know, then message. Carl said he uses that. What is it called? Fomblin. Yeah.
Fomblin. FOLMBLIN.
Yeah, it's
perfect.
perfluoropolyether, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And the wire is sold separately from the wire tires?
What's that?
Yeah.
The wire is sold separately from the wire tires?
Oh, well, we don't really sell wire. We have an option where if you want to order wire tires that are preloaded, we will load it up with 1.5 ounces of wire on each of the tires. Yeah. I would say maybe 65% of the orders are empty, where people load it with their own wire, but some people just like the convenience of having wire already on them. Doesn't matter to us either way. And
but none of the wire manufacturers have partnered with you to ship with them or anything?
I'll probably get back with Mapes and ask them again if they would consider working with us a little bit, but it's a quantity thing, and even though we go through a fair amount of wire, I mean, we order hundreds of dollars worth of 5-pound coils at a time and go through quite a bit. For them, it's probably not a huge amount. So but we use Mapes International Gold wire. It's the cleanest that I've seen. It's quality stuff. I like it, and it's just what we decided to go with. It seems like good wire.
Yep.
So any other gadgets you want to show us you have on your
let's see. You might recognize this as a late generation of something that's been around for a long time. So this is the action ratio gauge. Spurlock originally made these out of wood, and they were loaded with lead for weight. If you're not familiar with this, you just set it on the keys, and this part here.
That's an action ratio gauge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So this will depress the a white key 6 millimeters, and then you look at the chart, and it tells you, okay, if you're well, it's backwards for me, but it tells you, if the hammer rises so many millimeters, it gives you the actual ratio. And so it's a handy gauge for finding out the action ratio pretty quickly on a grand. There's, many different ways to do that and a lot of gadgets for that, but that's the one that, so Irwin Piano Restoration took over some of the things from Spurlock when he got out of the business. And they've been doing really great with, the key bushing calls. That's a big deal. And so glad that product is still out there because it's a fantastic product. They found that making these out of wood was just kind of time consuming, and having to work with lead is really, most people don't want to handle lead any more than they have to. So Dale asked if I'd be able to design something. And so this is what I came up with. It's basically the same thing. It's just made out of plastic and it's filled with sand. So it weighs about the same as the wood with the lead.
Wow.
Perfect.
Lead in it. So
that's amazing.
Right now we're working with Jan in Germany to get set up. They want to sell some of our products, and so this is one of them.
That's awesome. That's a huge win for you, Mark, isn't it?
Well, it's a huge win for the technicians in Europe who won't have to, pay as much for shipping to get something from us as they're paying for the product. It's very expensive. Shipping's gotten ridiculous lately. And so if they can buy something from Jan in Germany, that's going to be so much more convenient for everybody.
That's right.
Yeah, because right now we don't have any distribution anywhere, and that would be the first time anybody else is going to be reselling anything of ours.
That would be great.
So I'll let everyone know we're at about 2 or 3 minutes out, so we'll be winding down pretty soon. Mark, this has been really great. I'm really glad that you took a minute to spend some time with us, show and tell, answering questions, telling us about your history. It's all been quite fascinating. And we had a request to talk about Bitcoin in the end, but we're not going to do that. But no, it's been very great to have you here, and we look forward to maybe having you back sometime in the future. I think it would be really wonderful. I hope you've had a good time.
I have, and real quick, since Dawn took the time to bring it out, I'll just show you. This is the tool bag that Cy was talking about. At least this is the one that I use. This is my personal tool bag.
Oh, wow.
But there's all sorts of information on our website if you want to look.
That looks technological, man.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
That's new school. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and it's great to have seen all these names of people.
Listen, thank you so much. I told you the hour would fly by, right?
This is Dawn. She's my wife and business partner.
Dawn.
If you order from us, she's the one that takes care of everything for you and does the shipping, and so just wanted to have her say hello.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for working behind the scenes.
All right, kids. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Ethan, best partner ever. Thank you, Piano Technicians Masterclass, nerd community of beautiful piano obsessives. See you later. See you next week. Okay.
Yep. See you next time. Thank you so much, Mark. I put that final link in the chat. If anybody wants to sign up for the convention, get in early. All right. Catch y'all later. We'll sign off.
Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. Remember that you can catch us live online every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
That's right. Go to pianotechradio.com to register so you can interact live and ask questions of our guests.
See you next week.